You know, deep in the fields that literally feed the world, there is a massive, microscopic battlefield unfolding right beneath our noses. Welcome to today's Explainer. We are diving into a conflict that definitely doesn't make the evening news, yet it dictates the very survival of humanity. We're talking about the global food supply, and it is under a constant, relentless siege. Today, we're going to explore the invisible invaders that are actively fighting for your next meal.
Viruses, bacteria, fungi. Three entirely invisible kingdoms waging a totally silent war. Your everyday meals, the rice in your bowl, the banana sitting on your counter, the bread in your pantry, they're all under constant attack by these unseen saboteurs. It's an absolute mystery, it's incredibly urgent, and as we'll see today, the stakes literally could not be higher.
So let's start with our first invisible kingdom, made up of nature's ultimate microscopic saboteurs, viruses. These things are tiny, barely 300 nanometers long, but they completely hijack a plant's identity and cellular structure. They don't just eat the plant, right? They reprogram the whole thing. They destroy the chlorophyll, which is that vital green pigment that lets a plant breathe and photosynthesize, and they violently mutate its growth. Our story on this first front actually begins in the sprawling tobacco fields.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Think about a healthy tobacco plant. It relies on these broad, lush, green leaves. But when it's infected by the Tobacco Mosaic Virus, or TMV, which is actually one of the most studied plant viruses in history, those leaves shrink up, they heavily deform, and they lose all that essential green chlorophyll. It gets replaced by this sickly yellow-green mosaic pattern. The virus is aggressively attacking the plant's very identity. And the cure? Well, it's brutal but simple. You have to completely uproot and burn the affected plants in a roaring fire before this highly contagious virus can spread to the rest of the crop.
Now, what's genuinely wild about this is how a virus can just completely alter the physical architecture of a massive plant. Take the terrifying bunchy top infection. It causes a normal, tall, fruit-bearing banana plant to basically become a dwarf. All those massive leaves rush to the top and cluster together. It kind of looks like a deformed bouquet. The plant just stops growing entirely, and the fruit, it never even forms. A pathogen smaller than a grain of dust can completely silence an entire farm.
Moving right along the viral front, we hit another devastating enemy, the Fiji virus, or the southern rice black-streak dwarf virus. First discovered in Fiji, it leaves these menacing black streaks all over rice stems. But the real sabotage, that happens on the inside. It physically blocks the phloem channels, which are basically the plant's vital nutrient highways. It's spread by the white-backed plant hopper insect, and this virus effectively starves the rice plant from the inside out, turning these towering paddies into stunted, dying fields.
All right, so that brings us to the second front of this invisible war, bacteria. And guys, these aren't just your standard microscopic pests. They are aggressive architectural destroyers. These single-celled microorganisms specifically invade complex plant systems to rot, blight, and systematically dismantle the host's infrastructure from the inside out. They act exactly like a demolition crew inside the stems and roots of our most vital crops.
To truly grasp how calculated, how incredibly precise this bacterial attack is, just look at the progression of potato wilt. First, the Pseudomonas solanacearum bacteria enters the plant. Next, they form these brown rings inside the xylem. Quickly, the water-carrying vessels are completely blocked, perfectly sabotaging the plant's plumbing. Without that conduction system, the outcome is inevitable. The plant can't transport water or nutrients, so it just aggressively wilts and dies from the inside out.
The sheer pace of this bacterial devastation, it's staggering. It's honestly like getting urgent reports from a war zone. Black arm of cotton is caused by Xanthomonas bacteria, and it creates these rotting, water-soaked black lesions that just destroy the harvest. Out in our orchards, citrus canker raises ugly circular lesions directly on the fruit itself. And in our grain fields, Tundu disease in wheat relies on this terrifying alliance between bacteria and microscopic worms called nematodes to just fade and kill off the lower leaves. It's rapid, crop-spanning devastation happening across entirely different environments.
And you know what's really sad? Not even the oldest, most majestic giants are safe. Sandalwood Spike Disease is caused by phytoplasma, which are these bacteria-like parasites that live deep inside the plant tissues. This alarming infection has ravaged the ancient Indian Sandalwood forests of Karnataka since 1899. It has pushed this incredible tree to the absolute brink, making it vulnerable on the IUCN Red List. The absolute tragedy here, there's no cure. The only defense to save the surrounding forest is to chop the magnificent, ancient trees down entirely.
So the crucial takeaway here is just how insanely diverse and specialized these bacterial attackers are. We've got potato wilt striking potatoes and black arm destroying cotton, but crucially, look at the Zulu infection. Caused by Xanthomonas oryzae, this severe gram-negative bacteria wipes out vital rice fields. It causes bacterial leaf blight, and it is incredibly difficult to fight, systematically targeting the specific infrastructure of our most globally relied upon crops.
Okay, let's shift gears one last time to what is arguably the most ancient and sweeping threat of the whole bunch: fungi. These are spore-based destroyers. Unlike bacteria or viruses, fungi absolutely thrive in specific environmental triggers, like heavy humidity and cold mists. They're capable of draining a plant's nutrients directly or rotting its roots right out from underneath it. And when conditions are perfect, fungi don't just attack single plants, they launch massive, sweeping epidemics.
Just look at the devastating profile of yellow rust in wheat. This disease literally coats wheat leaves in this brilliant, deadly yellow powder. It's basically pollen from hell. It transfers effortlessly just by touch. Those rust colonies latch right on and drain carbohydrates directly from the plant, violently stopping photosynthesis. And what's really terrifying is how the weather dictates this war. In places like India's northern hill zones, literally one single night of cool weather, dew, and cold fog can trigger an unstoppable rust epidemic that sweeps across an entire region's harvest.
Now take the jackfruit. It's one of India's absolute oldest and most beloved fruits, but it's dealing with a newly discovered fungal foe, Athalia rolfsii. Interestingly, the mature, thick-skinned fruit remains entirely safe, but the young, developing fruit, highly vulnerable. This soil-borne fungus literally climbs up from the earth and rots the young fruit from the inside out. It threatens to erase an entire generation of the harvest before it even has a chance to grow.
And actually, this brilliantly illustrates our single biggest vulnerability today: Fusarium Wilt TR4. This is widely considered the absolute most feared fungal disease in modern agriculture. It specifically targets the Grand 9 banana. It starts subtly, just yellowing the trailing edges of the leaves, but soon it wilts and kills the entire massive plant. Why does this matter to us? Because the Grand 9 is the exact banana variety sitting on supermarket shelves and in your kitchen right now. TR4 is pushing our most commercialized fruit toward global extinction.
A lot of this fungal war is fought completely out of sight. Damping off disease strikes so insanely fast that young, hopeful seedlings just collapse right at the soil line before they even establish themselves. Similarly invisible is red rot. It attacks sugarcane, doing its rotting work deep beneath the ground, turning the roots a sickly red. These hidden killers really emphasize how crops are routinely struck from beneath the earth, losing the battle before they even have a fighting chance to break the surface.
To truly put this whole fungal war into perspective, we just need to look at the devastation. Yellow rust decimating our wheat fields, Aethiorot rot climbing up to destroy our beloved jackfruit, and Fusarium TR4 actively wiping out the global supply of Grand 9 bananas. The targets are vastly different, yet the method, these ancient, relentless fungal spores, is exactly the same. Defeating these ancient plagues isn't something a farmer can just do alone with a pair of shears. It requires a highly coordinated, incredibly advanced scientific defense network.
But listen, it's not all doom and gloom, because that brings us to the hopeful, triumphant turning point: the global resistance. Thousands of brilliant agricultural scientists, researchers, and farmers are actively fighting back on the front lines right now. They aren't just spraying chemicals. They are isolating plant cell cultures in modern labs. They are engineering entirely new, resistant plant DNA to fight back against the Zooxanthobacteria and TR4 fungi. They are the brilliant scientific shield standing between humanity and widespread starvation.
So I'll leave you with this. The next time you sit down to a warm bowl of rice or grab a banana on your way out the door, will you remember this invisible war? Will you think about the viruses, the bacteria, the ancient fungi, and the thousands of tireless scientists fighting around the clock just to ensure that food actually makes it to your plate? It is a fragile, incredible miracle that we get to eat every day. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, you'll probably never look at your grocery list the same way again.